Your speaker is not working properly. Cool, thank you. Your voice can still be recorded, but the voice of the other participants cannot. Okay.
We need the microphone because I think the mic. And it didn't hurt over the road. Yes, I heard that.
That wasn't just here.
I don't
That's 2 weeks before the event. Last fall, to go hire a private secret note right before Christmas and try to find something. So they told them. I was just wondering about this. Wow. Because they're out on that. If I was there, they thought it was damn excited. We're gonna watch every single day. How's it going? Depends on what they were.
Are you Michelle?
I am. Hi.
After school.
Nice to meet you.
I'm filling in for Audrey today.
Okay, perfect.
She called in sick with COVID.
Well,
She didn't come to get.
Right. I have some slides, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, this is our first time technically in this space, so we're learning.
It's okay.
As usual. So Amber, you've met Amber.
Yes, I did.
Certainly responsible for the first market and all that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a great space though.
It's
It's
beautiful.
bright and sunny and modern.
Yeah, I think we're going to be happy here. We've kind of moved around. We were downtown, and then we were at the country club. And
Oh
we've
my
been here.
gosh.
But this is
Yeah, this is nice.
new thing. So we I don't know if you know the routine here. We'll go through and do a little bit of business stuff and some announcements, that kind of thing, probably 15-20 minutes, and then you're on for as long as you want to be. Half hour,
Yeah.
20 minutes to half hour.
Yeah.
Depending on whether we can get your slides up.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
I'll just sit right here.
All right. So we're not going to have a microphone?
It's not known yet. We got a few minutes.
All right.
Sometimes it's like, no,
Now I do the presentation here. I'm just going to take the message. I've watched some of the replays of some of the old ones and there's a mask on. It's like a
I know, yes, I found that too.
Can we move this a little so that people can see you from this angle? Well, that's got the.
It's got the camera on
The camera on it. Okay, but we can move the podium back. I see your point.
I can move this over.
Okay, well, but then this is still capturing you. Well, let's figure it out.
That's good.
So when I was out at work,
I think that's probably fine. Okay, so let's see what we can do with the camera. Are we going to need to have a wire?
I'm not sure yet.
Mark went to find Nick, but I see him carrying a bowl.
Like you got food and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you got,
Well, I think I got some, but we need a microphone.
yeah, we need a microphone. That should help, should help with the sound, I think.
It's not horrible because there's a mic on the camera.
Did you ask, can they hear you at all? Janine?
Can you hear us, Jenny?
Janine, can you hear us?
I can hear you and all of the back noise that is in your room. So there's a lot of chat going on back there.
Okay, so then she-
So, it should be okay then.
yeah.
Great.
Just have to be
So
quiet.
when we actually get going here, the background should be down. We should be able to hear.
All right, that would be great. I think I'm doing the reflection today, so yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Not when they're actively wrestling. Yeah, we have not had it start of our pulling it. And we have Oh, thank you. Why? I mean, it's perfection. Okay, my son. I was like. Too far.
I just muted them. Now we can visit.
How did you do that?
I know, they gave me power. That was probably a mistake. Now they can hear us talking in the room. Of course, they're all talking too, so. Hello, Lori, how are you?
I'm well. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Happy New Year.
You
Oh.
too.
Here's my low-tech Happy New Year.
Here's mine.
Jim Sloan's last name is misspelled. It isn't slow with an N on it. It's S-L-O-A-N.
So do you have
I think
Looking okay?
No.
Oh, what's up?
Well, they want to talk about your name. Misspelled. This is mute. This is mute if it's crossover. Now you can talk. You want to start your video? You want to be seen?
No, yeah.
Yeah, start your video. There you are. And now you can be seen. Okay.
Real.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
I want to be seen too. All you have to do is just press this and they'll all appear.
Okay.
And down here.
Why am I not, why am I off of it now? Why am I not being seen?
Are there any more showers? Yeah, we're making more right now. Yep, we'll do it. You got it.
The bell is.
No, but there's a box here. There's no bell I don't think that's critical.
I think they got the point.
Yeah. Quiet down.
Yeah, right. Wow.
We don't have a bell, so I had to use the old-fashioned method, the hammer. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm welcome to the January 13th midday meeting of our Rochester Rotary Club. Glad to have everybody here. Good turnout today in our first meeting in this space. Looks like it's a pretty nice space. Hopefully the food is interesting for you. It'll be an adjustment from the meat and potatoes at the country club, I guess. But I'm Chris Colby, past president of the club. I'm pinch hitting today for Audrey Betcher, who is home ill, unfortunately. But it looks like we have a good turnout here, and also on the screen, looks like 12 members are zooming in. So we're going to take a second and just kind of wave to each other, both here and there.
Well, they can't see.
Oh,
I can't reach the camera stand.
but let the minutes show that we did wave to the people on Zoom. So away we go. So to start us off today, Sarah Gilliland is going to lead us in the four-way test. Sarah?
Okay, looks like we either had to have a camera or the
Yeah,
banner.
the banner's been relocated.
Okay, all right,
Yep.
so repeat after me. Of all the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and friendship? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Sarah. I haven't done this program for a while, so I have to read the script to make sure I stay on track. Janine Gangness, who is online on Zoom, will provide the reflection today. Janine, you're up.
Hello, thank you. I did some personal reflecting last night and decided to share a post that I did, and I will read through it, that I wrote in 2020 that is strangely still appropriate. During my daily walks on a local golf course, I take in the beauty and calming nature of trees. The grass, the river, the trees are all therapeutic for me. I love the outdoors and the feeling of connection to nature. The therapeutic benefits of being surrounded by nature are well researched and documented. I enjoy the fresh air, looking at the complexity of nature and thinking about the storms weathered. My favorite tree in the golf course, you may recognize this tree, by the way, in the Soldiers Field Golf Course. My favorite tree in the golf course is a big, gnarly, deciduous tree. It has lived through floods, storms, drought, and golf balls. This tree gives me hope for tomorrow. As I think about how nature adapts, I especially appreciate the benefits of trees and their protection. This tree, with the surrounding trees, filter the air, provides us oxygen, and protects the soil and the air. It makes oxygen for all of us to breathe. Trees clean our air, basically the lungs of our world. As I think about trees protecting our world, I also think about how we can protect each other. Now is a great time for us to be responsible neighbors, and in this case, pick up a mask. We don't have to make them anymore, and wear it. Wear that mask to protect each other. Be the tree and help our community weather this storm. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Next, we have birthdays and anniversaries. Mark Neville is going to do introduction of guests and visitors. Mark?
Thank you. We have a visitor today, Molly Putwell, who is a visitor. Was hosted by Jen Woodford. Jen, would you like to take a moment to introduce Molly to right as soon as you, and I'll keep tap dancing until you finish.
I would love to. So we welcome today as our guest, Molly Putwell. Molly is with Tuttle Insurance Partners. Molly, born and raised right here in Rochester. And comes from a healthy Rotarian lineage. Many of you may know her dad, Bill Pudwell, who is a Wieser. So Molly is interested in Rotary and is checking out our club today. So please welcome Molly.
Are there any other guests of Rotarians that I didn't?
Are there any online that we can?
I think those are all members, aren't they? Somebody want to pretend? I don't know. I think we're
I
good.
believe we're all members. That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Birthdays and anniversaries today in the first 2 weeks of January. Jen Teskey, January 11th. That's the only birthday in the first 2 weeks of January. Anniversaries to our club. There are a whole bunch of them here. A number of years progressively. Marco Lance, 2 years. Christine Erke, 8 years. Colin Aldis, 10 years. Steve Stenhog, 11 years. Nick Colas, 17 years. Carolyn Bailey, 21 years. Roy Adams, 27 years. Michael Fallon, 29 years. Lynn Clary, 41 years. Long. It seems like a couple of years. And John Woodruff, 47 years. So he's the one. Next, Tamsin Limer will introduce.
No, she won't.
She's not going to do it?
Well, she's not here, so that's or online. She texted me and said she wasn't feeling good.
All right. Well, we'll skip over that.
Yep.
As you know, we had a successful holiday classic tournament at the end of the year, and we're hoping that we have a good amount of money to distribute to the community through the three clubs and other grants. We do have a process for grant applications that people should be aware of, and they can contact any member of the club or look at our online.
The application's online.
The application is online, and so you should get those those applications in so that they can be considered by the committee. Sarah Gilliland will come back up here and do a member spotlight. Sorry to make you have to count back and forth.
I need to exercise.
on, I gotta get it, so.
Okay, Amber's gonna pull up a few pictures because I've been a member of this club for 33 years. So probably only Lynn Clary and John Woodruff remember when I was younger, thinner, and had dark hair. So I want to be sure you see me in some of those younger, thinner, dark hair days. All right, next slide. Here I am, was born in Lawrence, Kansas in 1955. My dad was a farmer, so I grew up on a farm, which at the time I hated. And now, you know, I'm proud to say I grew up as a farmer's daughter. The picture in the middle is me and my mom. My mom was a graduate of the University of Kansas, William Allen White School of Journalism. So not only was she a farm wife and the mother of 4, but she was a professional journalist her whole life and a very active community volunteer. My dad, in this lower picture, attended college on a track scholarship, was a farmer. He was the fun dad. He was a school board member. He was the founding member of the local water district, fair board member, et cetera, et cetera. And in the far picture, that's my sister Linda. So I turned out to be the oldest of 4, but Linda and I were about 2 years apart. Next slide. So here's me in grade school. I went to a small school. The grades were combined. So as you can see in this first picture, this is first and second grade. I'm this little girl right here in the white sweater with the smirky smile. And this is my friend Pammy with the matching dress. So the other picture is my mom and all 4 of us kids one time, probably in the mid-60s, as we were dressed up for Easter. Next slide. So 65 to 74, that was the years I was coming through junior high, high school. Look at this top left photo, the beauty. That was sort of the height of my awkwardness. I was as tall as I am now. I weighed probably 85, 90 pounds. The only kid in school who had braces, thus the closed lip smile, and the baby blue cat eye glasses. I was tremendous. In high school, I was active in debate and student council and band. And the photo on the far right is one of my favorites. That's when I was trying to pull off the Janis Joplin look. Got close. Yep, got close. In the middle, go back. I just wanted to talk about 4-H being a huge influence in my life. It taught me a lot of practical skills, gave me leadership opportunities, some public speaking skills, lifelong friends, learning about winning and losing and competition. And it gave me my idea for a career path. Ultimately, one I didn't end up pursuing, but 4-H and the professionals involved in that program were a huge influence in my life. Here I am in the middle. That's one of the years, you know, I sold a steer at the auction. So I don't think I was crying yet, but that was just as you led the steer up into the cattle truck to say goodbye. No. Okay, the next slide. So as I said, 4-H influenced me a lot. So I went to Kansas State University where I pursued a degree in home economics extension. I always thought I was going to be a county extension home economist. However, also in college, I met my future husband, Don, who was studying electrical engineering. So we both graduated in 77, and he got a job in Kansas City, and I had a job offer in Dodge City. Well, if you're familiar with Kansas, those are 2 entirely different edges of the state. So I decided not to take the job in Dodge City, and instead I got a graduate teaching assistantship at K-State to pursue my master's degree. And when I finished that, then Dawn and I were married, and I never did become a county extension home economist. So thank goodness for the few journalism classes that I took. That probably was an influence of my mom. But writing and editing turned out to be the marketable skills that I had. So in 1984, when Dawn took a job at IBM here in Rochester, thinking we'd be here a couple of years, I was fortunate enough to get hired at Mayo Clinic in their communications department, which is now known as their public affairs department. Next. So my first job at Mayo was writing patient education materials. So in a typical year, I'd work on 50 or 60 different topics, everything from one of my favorites was meals in a glass or through a straw. You know, people who couldn't chew after a certain procedure or whatever. But I learned so much about all different kinds of health issues during those years and my job was to interpret what the physicians and professional staff were saying into something that was meaningful and understandable for consumers. In 1987, I moved to a new part of Mayo called Mayo Medical Ventures. We were an entrepreneurial part of Mayo that was meant to take Mayo intellectual property and turn it into products and services that could generate revenue to come back and support education and research. So I had some great opportunities throughout my career that spanned the rest of my time. Working on everything from the first Mayo Clinic nutrition letter to these were a couple of the first books that I worked on. So initially we were very involved in print publications, but later then we graduated into much more digital media, a lot of different variety and opportunities. Next slide. So in November of '88 is when I joined Rotary. Matt Dacey, who was a member at the time, and he was a colleague in the Department of Communications. Matt was the one who invited me to Rotary. Susan Kelly was the first woman in our club, invited in 1987. So I was not the first woman, but by 1988, there were a handful of us. I do have the distinction of being the first Rochester Rotarian to have a baby because our son was born in 1989. Rotary has provided some tremendous opportunities for me. It provided the outlet outside of our family activities and my professional life to meet people throughout the community and to serve the community. And that was tremendously meaningful to me. I served as your club president back in 1819. I had to look that up. It was like, where have the years gone? And I've always enjoyed a lot of different parts of Rotary, but some of my favorites are Salvation Army bell ringing, Strive, the Holiday Classic, tree planting, and the Quarry Hill Fall Festival. And I want to thank you again for the opportunity to attend the International Convention in Toronto the year that I was coming into my term as president. Next one. So here's our Rotary baby, our favorite son. Alex is an amazing young man who currently lives in Minneapolis. The picture on the right is him completing his first Twin Cities Marathon last October, which we had the pleasure of watching part of. He's a graduate of the University of Minnesota with a degree in Russian. He works at a hospital in St. Louis Park, and this week he started nursing school. And Janine, if you're still online, I want to thank you for the encouragement. Yeah. So my last slide is 25 years at warp speed. In '95 was when my career sort of took a turn when we got much more into digital media. I was one of 3 people that were invited into a conference room the day that we went from a book, the Mayo Clinic Family Health book. We created a CD-ROM, which was the technology of the time. And one annual version of the CD-ROM actually included a web browser and a link to the very first Mayo Clinic consumer website. So we went from that to now mayoclinic.org that has millions and millions of visitors and provides tremendous service to people throughout the world, really. In later years, I kind of got away from the writing and editing and helped to create much more of a publishing infrastructure. Everything from a creative department, a user experience department, a compliance and contracting department. So I had the pleasure of hiring a lot of good people who are still at Mayo today, and I take great pride in that. So I retired from Mayo already in 2014, my gosh, after 30 years. And so I've been having a great time since then. I really enjoy having free time. And my biggest project is what you see on the right, not me alone, but unfortunately by 2015, both of my parents were gone. My parents were both only children. So the only relatives left to carry on this Kansas farming legacy were my siblings and I. So we made the joint decision to save the family farm. And this house, which you're seeing now in good shape, was kind of at the point where we had to either bulldoze it or do something. So we spent the last 3 years, first of all, getting rid of 4 generations of stuff, and then working with a very talented local contractor and bringing this home back to life. So I make a lot of trips back and forth to Kansas, managing the farms and some rental property, and it's been a real pleasure to reconnect. But thank you again for the many opportunities the Rotary has given me, and most of all, for the friendships that have happened all along the way. That's it.
Thank you, Sarah. Great story, and one that it's always intrigues me to hear the backgrounds of people that are in Rotary. But we don't connect at that level very often. It's always nice to hear what people where they came from and where they are, and how they got to Rotary and how they take advantage of Rotary. A few additional things to highlight before we get into our program. Your TRCR board met yesterday and took the following actions. Our annual meeting will be on January 27th, which is 2 weeks from today. We will bring forward a slate of officers for 2022 to 23, starting in July 1 of this year, sorry. And we will bring some bylaw changes based on strategic plan work. That's still a work in progress, and there will be votes on these items, and so we need your attendance either personally or online so that we have a quorum. I guess we decided yesterday we need something like 28 to 30 people, and we're pretty close to that right now. I think 13 online, and I think we're probably 17 or 18 by my count. So if we can do this again in a couple of weeks, that would be pretty good. The board is contacting every member, as many of you may be aware, to make sure that people are plugged into service projects that are available and activities that are engaging to them. If you haven't had a call yet, I know I haven't been very good about my follow-up, and Fred, you haven't either. And so between the two of us, we've got to get that done. But the idea is to try to get a little bit of an idea of what individual members' interests might be and things that we might tailor some of our programs and efforts into. So just be aware that that's an ongoing process. Camp Ryla is on this year, and we will start recruiting students very soon. And so keep an eye on the moccasin flower as that moves forward, and that is a good program that we sponsor and foster as Rotarians. One couple of additional things. Last month we had a program for Edgar Patello, the Rotaract student that we are hosting this year while he is at Mayo doing research. There's interest from members of all 3 clubs to send him to the Rotary International Convention in Houston this summer. He's very interested and has gotten the time off of work. If anyone would like to make a donation toward the trip to cover the flight, hotel, and registration, please make the check out to the Rotary Club of Rochester. And if you have a question on that, you can call or send an email to Amber.
But make sure you write on it that that's what it's for, because otherwise,
Yeah, it's.
I assume it's for me.
Yeah, well, not quite, but
Oh,
yes.
okay, thanks, Chris.
But the process there, we can't run that through. We have to run that through our books, but we have to. We're not funding that as a club effort. It's individual contributions to help them out. One additional thing, thank you to Colin Aldis, who will coordinate small group Thursdays. Next week, your options, as you watch Moccasin Flower, they're listed. And our options will be to visit the home of Phil Carcel, where he will share his shop and woodworking projects. This option is limited to 8 people, so sign up early if you're interested in that. There will also be a social lunch option and a virtual option. So watch for the Moccasin Flower early next week to get signed up for those events. And I assume Colin will be arranging other things through the next several months, and we'll get going on some interesting projects. So are there any other announcements that anyone would like to make before we introduce our speaker? I don't see any hands up or anything. So here we go. Our speaker today is Dr. Michelle Wieser, Dean of the School of Business and Technology at St. Mary's University of Minnesota. Earlier in her academic career, Dr. Wieser held leadership positions at the University of Minnesota's Carlson School of Management and Washington University in St. Louis. Before entering academia, she held sales, marketing, and consulting roles with General Mills, Ralston, now Nestle, Purina, and EY Consulting. Dr. Wieser received her Ph.D. from the University of Minnesota, an MBA from Washington University in St. Louis, and a Bachelor of Journalism degree from the University of Minnesota. Her research focuses on the experience and outcomes of MBA graduates across the US and Europe, with a particular focus on differences achieved by gender and race. Her most recent research was featured in more than 30 news outlets, including the Financial Times, Bloomberg, and CBS News. So if we can get our technology working correctly.
Give us a second. Thanks for the lovely introduction.
Yes.
You're gonna have to tap dance.
Just for a
Tap
minute.
dance.
Level.
Pardon me?
You're gonna have to tap dance.
We gotta get the
Yep,
slides up.
yeah, okay. All right.
Tell a joke.
I don't have one in my back pocket.
Oh.
Mr. President.
Yes,
Can I come up with a vote?
you certainly can. You made a motion.
You only have 2 minutes.
So you get at least 2, Colin.
So last week, Jill, what's Jill's last name? Asked me if I would help coordinate the 3rd Thursday, which, as you just heard, next Thursday, we're going to Phil's Castell's house. We're going to Twigs for lunch, and then there's a virtual option. And so Jill came up to me and said, "Will you do this?" I said, "Sure, I'll do it," not knowing that what I really had to do. So now I do understand what I have to do, and I'll need your help, because as you can see, we need some level of activity on that 3rd Thursday. And so I am going to be calling or emailing you to see if you might participate. I mean, the Twigs is pretty simple. We'll continue to go to lunch at Twigs. There is no agenda. It's show up, pay for lunch, and leave. Pretty simple. But there are 2 other options that we have monthly that I now am going to coordinate. So maybe we visit a bank. I'm looking at Lynn. Maybe we come to a financial institution shop where I work. Kind of boring to come to my place. Maybe we go to an architectural shop or a printer's shop, just as I look out in the community. So we're looking for ideas to physically get people in small groups on these third Thursdays. And if you've got a great idea, I'd love to hear it.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. How are we doing here?
Almost done. Just one short
So
joke.
then you want to go exit.
Almost there. It'll just keep-
There you go.
Thanks, Nick. Remember this is-
No. Thank you very much.
Why didn't you go show Yes, I got logged out too.
Got it.
The Zoom, I presume people still.
And so. There were just a second. And you said what?
Yes.
We're good. I'll come up and get started.
All right. All yours.
Thanks, Chris. All right, hopefully our Zoom friends are still there. Hi, if you are. Thank you for the lovely introduction. My name again is Michelle Wieser. I am the Dean of the School of Business and Technology at St. Mary's University, which, as you may know, has 3 campus locations, one here in Rochester, one in Winona, and one in the Twin Cities and in near downtown Minneapolis. So I'm really excited to be here. Rochester is a huge strategic focus of ours. And so a little bit about what I'll talk about today is I'll touch on a couple of the things that we've got going on here in Rochester, but my main goal is to just talk us through kind of where we are and where we're going. Let me see what's happening. Oh, no. All right, I'm just gonna wing it from my slides
I'll just keep
myself.
watching for it. And when
Yeah, let me know
when
when
it
it's
loads,
there.
I'll just.
Oh,
I got it.
Okay, so this presentation I first gave at a Grauk event a few months ago. And the title of it is Here We Go, Not Again, but Anew. So the gist of the presentation was in part an attempt of my own to lift out of this whole here we go again. At the time, Omicron variant was not even on our radar screens. This was just a couple months ago. And I think there was a general sense of, okay, we're starting to lift out of this. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. And now I think most of us would feel like, well, here we go again. So we'll talk kind of through what that means. So my attempt here was how do we get out of thinking about again and into a more positive mindset of anew. And I will admit I am no expert at this, like many of you. Trying to be positive in a time that's incredibly challenging is a daily struggle. So if you click to the next slide, why this topic, again, really trying to shift focus, talk a little bit about what I've learned over the past now 22 months. And I'll share some examples from my own work and personal life. And then I'll just share a little bit about how at St. Mary's as Dean of Business and Technology, how we're really hoping to work together anew in this region in particular. So on the next slide, you'll see what kind of sparked this topic for me. And this image here is of the Chronicle of Higher Education. It is a big, physically big publication that comes out every couple of weeks. A lot of higher ed professionals subscribe. And this came as the fall issue, and there's the title, Here We Go Again. And I was like, no, we can't be going down this path again. I'm not ready. I don't want to think about all of the changes that, that we're going to have to implement again. So thinking about it more positively, I literally got literal here and looked up the definition of again, once more, another time, and same. We kind of feel that right now, don't we, with where we are in this pandemic? It's like, are you kidding me? It's again, we're in the same mode, another time. From Anew, which is in a newer, different, and typically more positive way. So with that, I kind of spent some time reflecting, and I'll share with you what I reflected on. You can. So there's 6 big buckets that I wanted to address today. So the past several months have highlighted many areas of focus. It's not 18 months anymore, it's 22 months. But some of the things that have been front and center on my mind as a leader in higher education, but being a dean of business and technology, I spend equal amounts of my day in education and in the actual business or corporate or nonprofit world. So starting with purpose, why are we here? How do mission, vision, strategy, all those things really come to the forefront at times like this that are feeling pretty uncertain and are continuing to feel pretty uncertain. People, I mean, how much have we heard about this great resignation, and how many of you in this room are hurting for people and wanting to retain people and hire new people? So how do we focus on growth, retention, flexibility, communication, all those things? Adaptability, I think the whole notion of change management, that's something that we've talked about in business for obviously decades, but it is really taken on a whole new flavor in recent months and the past 2 years. So how do we become more comfortable with change? How do we help lead others through change? How do we recognize the value of learning new things and of trying new things, even in a really challenging time? Empathy is
Hey,
one.
Michelle, I'm going to interrupt because your slideshow isn't advancing. It's actually stuck in edit mode. So if you could do the presentation mode, then I mean, we can see your title and your name, which is why. So it's great to have you.
Thanks for interrupting. I'm not driving, so we'll get it fixed. Empathy, I didn't think a lot about empathy in my work life before the past several months. I think people have a lot of anxiety right now, and it's hard sometimes in the moment to give and extend one another the grace that everybody deserves as we're trying to navigate so many things personally, as well as professionally. Innovation and connection are 2 things that have been kind of, I think, hallmarks of what I've tried to do since I've been with St. Mary's the past 2.5-ish years. And I think they've really served as guideposts for me since this pandemic began as well. So how do we not get ourselves so caught up in the immediate fire that needs to be put out, but try to keep a lens looking forward onto, how do we keep innovative new ideas moving forward? How do we continue to build connections in a largely virtual world so that we can emerge from this stronger and better at the end? So I'll just touch on a few key things throughout each of these, starting with purpose, so we can move forward. We think we can move forward. Uh-oh, now it won't advance. Well, I'll talk about a little bit what you can see, at least those in the room, a little bit of this slide, which talks about how in uncertain times, let mission and strategy kind of serve as your guide and your values. So no matter, this is a quote from our president at St. Mary's, Father James Burns, which says, no matter what change is afoot, staying focused and true to who we are is critical to survive and in fact thrive. One of the things I think that I am the proudest of over the past several months is staying true to a strategic plan that was developed about 4 or 5 years ago, and was at the time that it was conceived, actually it was developed about 2 or 3 years ago after Father Burns came to St. Mary's. The goal of it was to look forward 5 years and have a vision and strategy for really changing the way that we educate. When a pandemic comes your way, it's very easy to just set that strategic plan on the shelf. I'll just pull it up and just kind of walk through it. One of the things that I, like I said, am most proud of is the fact that as a university and as a team and as a leadership team, we really worked to stay focused on what we were trying to achieve in the long term. So I guess the message that I would share there is, to the extent that organizations, professional organizations, community organizations such as Rotary, such as your own individual employers or other groups that you are a part of, really trying to think about why do we exist to begin with and how can we use that as our guide to ensure that we emerge from this stronger and better, hopefully. Okay, moving ahead to people. There's been a lot discussed and talked about when it comes with people, our most valuable resource. For me, in a role as the dean of a school of business, people is at the forefront in 2 very real ways. I have my colleagues, my peers, my team that I have to concern myself with every day, but I also have a group of students. It's not unlike, any sort of business that you all may be a part of where you've got your own employees, but you've got customers. It's important for us to focus on how do we retain them? How do we help students persist through their education? And I think, if I had to kind of sum it up in one kind of short list of things that have surfaced to the top as being the most important, it's the 3 you see here, is really looking at flexibility, at wellness, and the whole person. And then constantly trying to think through how do we engage or how do we re-engage with each other in person. I think a few months ago, kind of late fall, we were all starting to emerge more than we are now. It's great to see so many people here in person. It really, I think, lifts my spirits and it is full of hope and optimism. But as we know, so much of what we're doing is still virtual. So I think one of the things that I have tried to do, and I would encourage all of you to continue to do, is really find ways to continue to engage with people in a largely virtual environment, but then start thinking about how do we even begin to re-engage. I know there were a lot of jokes going around at first, like, do we shake hands? Do we hug? Do we all stand in different parts of the room? Like, we've all lost our ability to know how to be together and function appropriately. And then one of the other things that I've done that I found to be pretty helpful is investing in myself. I am a person who likes to do a lot of reading and learning and self-development anyway. It's been a good time to do that, especially in winter. It's all of a sudden kind of this hibernation season again. So how can we use this kind of different time to invest in ourselves and then do some professional skill development for each other, for employees, for peers, et cetera. Okay, moving along to the comfort with change. Really the only thing I will say here, I'm not an expert on change management. I think that we all are always learning how to deal better with change. The one comment up here at the top is that change fatigue is real. We're just tired of it now. Nobody wants to keep having to reimagine things and change the way we're teaching or change the way we're selling products or the supply chain issues. I mean, figuring out how to deal with that. If anybody's been to a Target lately, oh my goodness, I walked by an aisle women's socks a couple weeks ago, and there was one pair of socks in the entire department. It's like, you know, the people that work in that industry trying to figure out, oh my goodness, like this is something that we didn't anticipate, now we're dealing with. And it's hard to focus on the positive elements of change. One of the things that I had read, it was an article in Fast Company that I thought was really helpful, is what you see in this image, and you can't see it super clearly, but it's a fork in the road in the woods. And this article talked about how viewing change as a fork in the road solidifies the notion that standing still is not an option. So when you're out for a walk and you come to a fork, you don't just stand there for the rest of the day. You choose a path and you move. There's action behind it. So the notion was, you know, through positive reinforcement, through encouragement, we can become more comfortable with change and recognize that change doesn't have to be a dramatic pivot from what we're doing today. It can be a, either we do this path or this path. So more of an either or versus a stop and go type of scenario. I really liked that imagery and reframing change in that way. Emotional intelligence is another one. Practice empathy, assume the good, extend grace. Do any of you pick a word of the year? I always try to have a word that guides me. And I haven't chosen mine for this year. I'm late in doing so. And the term or the word grace keeps surfacing to the top for me. So that might just have to be the winner. But for me, I'm not a very patient person by nature. So grace.
What was your word last year?
My word last year was shine. And I don't know that I fully achieved it, but I tried. And by shine, I meant, you know, be your best self, be a leader that inspires people, you know, all the things that come if you think of literally like a sunshine and rays of light. And, you know, I think I came back to it regularly, and I actually found it to be really helpful. And you'll note that once you choose a word, you're going to start to see it showing up everywhere, and that'll just reinforce it. But grace is a good one. I am the kind of person that will catch myself saying on a Sunday night, wow, I accomplished nothing this weekend. You know, God, was I just a waste? No, I relaxed. I spent time with family. Like, that's okay. You don't always have to be achieving. Cut yourself a little slack, give yourself some grace, but then extend the same thing to other people. I just think it's so important, especially virtually, when we don't have this benefit of sitting around a table to see the whole person and to see the body language and have the side conversations, just the chit chat at the tables before the meeting starts. That's so incredibly valuable. And when you're spending your day meeting on Zoom, you just don't have that ability to connect. So sometimes it's helpful to realize that if someone makes a comment that's a little bit snarky or rubs you the wrong way, just remind yourself that they're, you know, what might they be dealing with, and how can we assume the best in people? Okay, this one we can kind of step past. This one just talks about some of the new innovative things that we're doing, but I'll touch on this. I mentioned that innovation is without question, Christine knows this, we worked together for quite some time, the favorite part of my job. I love thinking about new things. I love tackling a business problem in a new and innovative way. And so one of the things that we've really tried to stay focused on as an educational institution is the importance of meeting the needs of the workforce, of many of you and of your companies here. So how do we look at new ways of educating people in a faster, cheaper, and better way with things like micro-credentials? How do we begin to provide new types of learning, particularly here in Rochester? And how do we do things that allow our students and our learners to demonstrate what they've learned? So we embarked on a new digital badging thing over the past year that I think we all kind of went into it saying, okay, it's kind of cool, we'll try that. And it has just blown the roof off of our expectations. We have had students sharing new credentials that they have attained at St. Mary's and been able to change jobs and get promotions. We have just real tangible stories to tell out of that. So I think, you know, really looking at what does the workforce need now and how can we meet those needs? And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide, working together anew. So again, as a leader that spans both education and business, the way I kind of view my world is this little four-pronged chart here, which looks at higher education, industry, the individual, and the community. And all of that kind of touches the Rotary organization as well. So how do we begin to partner better together on things that allow us to build skills in people regardless of where they are in their career? So an article in Harvard Business Review that I read recently talks about how it was 57 or 60%, something like that, of academic leaders, industry and academic leaders believe that collaboration is the key to moving forward. In this market in Rochester in particular, I am co-leading an initiative. I have termed it Reimagine Rochester for St. Mary's. Really, it's the Rochester Strategic Initiative, which doesn't have the same oomph that Reimagine Rochester has, but essentially what we are tasked with doing is a number of things. Number one, breathing life into our campus location, which is out at Cascade Meadow. I was just out there before coming here. It's a beautiful facility if you haven't been there. It was buzzing today because we were out there, some of the folks, we had several Mayo Clinic people out there and several of our School of Health folks interviewing students for our physician assistant program that we run in partnership with Mayo. So it was really neat to see it really coming to life in a new way. But often when you walk into that building, it's quiet. You know, how do we build more of a presence that brings people together, especially not being a native of Rochester? The one thing I have learned in the past few years is just how much Rochester folks like to connect. You like to be together. You genuinely value things like this. So how can we be a part of helping to facilitate? Christine does our Women Entrepreneur Forums out there. How do we get more events like that and have people come to our space? So it's about thinking about new academic offerings. Of course, that's my day job. But the other part of my world with this Reimagine Rochester is really trying to think through exactly this. How do we work together anew? Which would also be a good word of the year, just anew. You know, trying to lift out of, you know, the doldrums and the here we are again. And we were talking at my lunch table over here about how some schools are moving into virtual learning again. And that word again just crops up over and over, and it's a challenge to figure out how to work past it. So lastly, I'll just show you a quick snapshot of some of the things that we are working on in Rochester. This is neither here nor there, but just for your information. Again, the Rochester Strategic Initiative is looking at a number of things, everything from focusing on a learning life cycle that goes beyond just what we think about with traditional college or master's level education. Really focusing on entrepreneurship and innovation, because I know how important that is in this area. And it was great that Sarah, that you worked in the Mayo Ventures, Innovation and Ventures area for a while. That just illustrates how important it is, not just for startups or individual or small entrepreneurs, but for the function of intrapreneurship and innovation within large enterprises like Mayo. Another thing that we're working on is how can we do a better job of educating educators? Many people in this market are so highly educated. We need people to teach our students as adjunct instructors. How can we do a better job of reaching out and finding ways to coach and train professionals who may want to teach a class here or there for us and engage with students? So that is one. Redefining in-person connection is something we're constantly working on as well. And then the ever important building partnerships is a big prong of what we're trying to do with reimagining Rochester. So it's really great to meet with a group like this of people that come from different industries, different backgrounds, different points in your career, whether you're newer in your career or you're retired. It's great to be able to see the energy and come and be with you today. And I just want to thank, it was Janine Ganganis who brought me to this opportunity after I had the chance to speak to her and some education and professional colleagues through Grauk. So with that, thank you very much, and always happy to follow up or answer questions or just engage and support one another. So with that, have a great 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. It's a reminder of similar, what you're talking about is similar to what we've been doing, using this time at Rotary to step back and kind of prioritize our efforts and kind of refocus what it is that we're doing with this organization. And so it's a timely reminder that that's going on across the spectrum of area. Colin, you have a question?
Question or comment, so I was sitting at Christine, and Rotary is looking for a place to go every third Thursday.
Okay,
We'd
great.
love to come to your
Please.
facility sometime this year.
Yeah.
And make us lunch, that would be.
I don't know if we can make something this good.
And then on a
Try.
selfish personal note, maybe we can talk offline. I'm in financial services, and we do some community ed classes. I think we'd love to come out here.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Occasionally and talk to those folks. So
Absolutely.
it'd be great to talk.
Yeah.
And Lynn's, he'd like to do that.
You'd like to do it too?
Yeah, so.
Didn't know that, did you, Lynn?
Perhaps, Michelle, you could make sure that Amber has your contact information. So
She now does.
Yeah, yep, I have it all.
Have all of it now. That's
Yeah.
right. Well, Michelle, thank you for your presentation. A gift to Journey, spelled Journie, is a nonprofit youth organization providing support and life skills training and mentorship to youth in the Rochester community. There'll be a gift given to them in your name.
Oh
So
my gosh.
thank you.
How generous. Thank you.
So as we close out today, unless somebody has anything else they want to bring up? Okay. As we close out today, I want to give thanks to all who assisted. Larry Kosher, our greeter, Sarah Gilliland, for leading us in the four-way test and giving her career update, or career talk. Janine Gagnes, who provided the reflection. Mark Neville for introducing visitors and assisting at the visitors table. John Woodruff, the 47-year member, our Sergeant at Arms, for helping the visitor table. And thank you to our speaker, Dr. Michelle Wieser. So thank you. And I want to thank Amber for, this is our first time in this room. And so the technology, like we had at the country club, takes a while to kind of get figured out. So good job. And so thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you. And remember that Rotary serves to change lives.
We did.
There's something with her program, is there some way that would have